She had no money, no diploma, no connections, but she had 2 daughters to feed and a burning desire to change her fate. In the back of a modest house in Mexico, a brave mother decided to face life with needle and thread in hand, never imagining her talent would stitch together far more than just clothes. It would create a whole new reality. What she didn't know was that, across town, a millionaire was about to change everything. The house was simple, made of exposed bricks, and a zinc roof that crackled under Guadalajara's scorching sun. It wasn't luxurious, but it carried the smell of beans on the stove, the scribbled drawings of little girls on the walls, and the sound of laughter from a family that, even in scarcity, still knew how to laugh. This was where Lucía Ramirez lived, a brave mother with eyes that shone with dreams, even when reality tried to crush every last bit of hope. Lucía never had much. She grew up in a humble neighborhood, the daughter of a bricklayer and a local sweets vendor. From an early age, she learned that life charged a high price for every little victory. She studied as far as she could, married Javier, a good, hard-working man, but one of many victims of the upes and downs of the Mexican economy, which in recent years had torn apart the purchasing power of working-class families. Together, they had 2 daughters, 8-year-old Emilia and 5-year-old Renata, both full of energy and imagination. Lucia's days were filled with house chores, caring for the girls, and helping Javier however she could. He worked at a small construction supply store, hauling bags of cement and commuting for hours by bus. His paycheck barely covered the essentials. Food was rationed, and any surprise, like a cold, a new notebook, or a higher electric bill, could throw their budget into dangerous imbalance. But what truly began to weigh on Lucia's heart was the hopeless expression on Javier's face when he came home. Sunken eyes, slumped shoulders. He didn't smile like before. He was exhausted, and the frustration of not being able to offer his daughters a better life was eating him alive. Lucía felt it, and that's when a restlessness started to grow inside her chest. Is there really nothing more I can do? Is my fate just to wait, hope, and survive? She never had a profession. She was dedicated to her family, but that no longer felt like enough. Not now. Not in the face of such hardship. Then, one afternoon, while organizing some old clothes, she found a blouse her mother had sewn for her when she was a child. It was simple but filled with hand-stitched details. A lump rose in her throat. That memory reignited something she had forgotten. The image of her mother at the sewing machine, feet pedaling, fabric gliding like magic through her fingers. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Lucía lay staring at the ceiling and thought, what if I learned to sew? What if this could be a way out? The idea seemed crazy. She didn't have a machine, had never really sewn, only fragments of memories from childhood. But it sparked something. The next day, heart pounding, she went to her neighbor's house, Dona Carmen, an elderly woman who lived alone and sometimes sewed clothes for others. She explained her desire, her idea, her desperation. Carmen, surprised by the courage in this woman's eyes, decided to help her. I'll teach you, but you have to promise you won't give up when your back aches, when the needle pricks your finger, when it feels impossible. Sewing isn't just making clothes, it's turning pain into art, Lucía promised. For weeks, she went to Carmen's house every afternoon after lunch, holding Renata's hand while Emilia was at school. She learned to measure, cut, press fabric, and deal with mistakes. At first, her pieces were crooked, her finishing rough, but there was something there. Carmen saw it, a raw talent, hidden behind self-doubt. And more than anything, she saw a mother willing to do anything to change her daughter's fate. When Javier came home and saw his wife buried in fabric, he reacted with worry. Love, what if it doesn't work? What if this is just another dream that goes nowhere? Lucía took a deep breath and answered firmly. Not trying is already failure. For the first time, he saw a fire in her eyes that he no longer had the strength to light, and he chose to support her. With great effort, saving every cent, Lucía managed to buy a used sewing machine. It was old, noisy as hell, but it worked. She placed the machine on the small front porch and set up her first makeshift studio. She sewed late into the night, after the girls were asleep, eyes heavy, fingers aching, but her heart full of purpose. At first, she did small repairs for neighbors, hems, adjustments, zippers. Then she started creating from scratch. Little blouses, children's dresses, flowery skirts. She used cheap fabrics, but chose them with care. Every stitch was made with love, as if she weren't sewing clothes, but dignity. She posted photos on Facebook with help from a friend at church who knew a bit about social media. And that's when the first miracle happened. A distant cousin from another city saw the photos, fell in love, and ordered some pieces. Then, one of Emilia's teachers placed an order. Slowly, the name Costuras da Luz, the name she chose for her brand, inspired by her own name, began to spread. But it was still barely enough. The bills stayed tight, and the orders were sporadic. Still, something had changed. Lucía woke up with purpose. There was a spark in her eyes. Her daughters started imitating her, sewing doll clothes from scraps. Javier began coming home and asking about the day's orders, excited as if they were his own. And then came the first big fall. One weekend, the plumbing burst. Water flooded everything. It soaked fabric, damaged the sewing machine, and ruined boxes filled with ready-to-ship clothes. Lucía was devastated. She cried like she hadn't in a long time. It felt like everything was falling apart. But then, sitting on the wet floor, hands covered in ink and mud, she heard Emilia whisper, "Mommy, we can sew it all again, right? Just like you do, with the torn clothes." It hit her like a punch of light in the chest. Lucía got up, gathered the fabrics she could save, called Carmen for help. Javier took out an emergency loan to repair the machine. And together, like a small army, powered by love, they rebuilt the tiny studio. That week, Lucía posted a heartfelt message on social media. She told everyone what had happened, with before and after photos. No victimhood, just truth. The post went locally viral. People were moved. New orders started coming in. Neighbors knocked on her door, offering fabric they had stored away. A woman from a wealthy neighborhood called, asking for 3 identical dresses for her twin daughters. She said she was moved by the strength of a mother who refused to give up. Lucía realized in that moment that sewing wasn't just a skill. It was her weapon, her tool for change. And she decided she would never stop again. If she once sewed out of necessity, now she sewed with passion. She was sewing her own destiny, and she had no idea what was still to come. The early success of Costuras da Luz brought a breath of hope to the Ramirez family. Orders started coming in more frequently, and Lucía, with her humble and charismatic way, had already become known in the neighborhood as the seamstress who didn't give up. But like everything born out of struggle, the road to overcoming wouldn't be a straight line, and Lucía would still have to face trials that would test not only her strength, but her faith in herself. With more orders coming in, the first obstacle appeared almost predictably: time. Lucía was sewing alone. Demand was growing, but days still had only 24 hours. She wanted to handle everything. Take care of the house, cook meals, help the girls with their homework, and still sew dresses, blouses, and personalized orders. Little by little, exhaustion became part of her routine. She started sleeping less. Sometimes, she'd fall asleep with her head on the machine. Her fingers were always nicked, and by the end of the day, her vision began to blur. Javier, worried, tried to convince her to slow down, but she would only smile, dark circles under her eyes. I can't stop now. Javier, it's now or never. But the body keeps score, and it charged her dearly. One night, after a long day with 5 orders delivered, Lucía collapsed on the kitchen floor. Emilia was the one who found her. The little girl ran desperately to the bedroom, screaming for her father. It was a terrifying moment. They rushed her to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed severe physical exhaustion and anemia. She had to stay under observation for 2 days. It was a hard hit. Javier held her hand at the hospital bed, eyes filled with tears. You don't have to kill yourself to save us. Love, we just want you alive. Those words hit her deeply. When she returned home, Lucía rethought everything. She needed help. She had to structure her little business, no matter how informal it was. She decided to teach Carmen a few basic sewing techniques, even with trembling hands due to age. Carmen was eager to help. Then she invited a young woman from the neighborhood, Marisol, the daughter of a church friend who was unemployed. She became Lucía's first apprentice. With their help, the flow improved. Lucía began to dream bigger. She created tags for her clothes, found free entrepreneurship courses offered by local NGOs, and even started learning how to create an online store, even though she knew almost nothing about technology. But the outside world is harsh on those who dare to dream big in small places. Just as everything seemed to be moving forward, another blow hit. A wealthy woman from the city who had ordered clothes from Lucía a few weeks before copied the designs she had created with such care and started selling them in a fancy boutique, claiming them as her own. The woman had contacts, influence, and money for marketing. Suddenly, Lucía saw her creations on that boutique's social media with a different name, a different price, a different story. No credit, no respect. It felt like a stab in the back. She cried for days, felt robbed, wronged. The urge to give up hit hard. Javier was furious, but they didn't know what to do. Sue her. They had no money for a lawyer. Expose it online. What if people didn't believe her? But once again, hope came from where she least expected. Emilia, seeing her mother so sad, picked up a piece of paper and drew a dress. It was a dress with a sun embroidered on the chest and hearts sewn into the sleeves. She handed it to her mother and said, "No one can copy this one, because it was made with love." Lucía understood. That was it. What she put into her clothes. No one could copy soul. She decided to keep going, redesigned her pieces, changed the prints, started writing personalized notes for every order. In time, she began to regain her customers' trust. But the challenges didn't stop. Then came the pandemic, and with it, people stopped buying clothes. What was once a want became an unnecessary luxury. Sales dropped again, but Lucía didn't let herself sink. She took the fabric she had left and began making protective face masks. Colorful, washable, comfortable, with embroidered words like faith, hope, and love. The masks became a local hit. Kids wanted to wear them because they were cute. Older women bought them as gifts. And in a gesture that moved many, Lucía donated dozens of masks to a public hospital, made with simple fabric, but with all the care of a brave mother. Her story went viral again, this time in an entrepreneur group in Mexico. A small TV report featured her journey, and that was when she started attracting a new kind of attention, customers from outside her city, which brought a new problem: how to ship the orders. She knew nothing about deliveries, packaging, the postal system. It took days of failed attempts, lost orders, and delays. Lucía had to learn from scratch how to handle deadlines, invoices, spreadsheets. What was once just passion was turning into a real small business, and she had to grow up fast. That's when she met Natalia, a woman with a degree in digital marketing who offered to help structure the brand's Instagram for free. Natalia saw more than talent in Lucía. She saw purpose. Together, they created a new logo, improved the photos, and started sharing the stories behind each piece. And that's how an online community was born. Loyal followers who didn't just buy dresses, they bought a piece of Lucia's courage. But the climb was slow. Javier, even seeing the progress, still had moments of frustration. He felt left out of the process, as if success now depended only on his wife. It was hard for him to deal with the bruised pride. There were arguments, silent moments in the house, but Lucia, always patient, brought him in, asked him to help pack the clothes, put together the boxes, track the shipments. Slowly, he started to feel like part of it again. And then, just when everything seemed finally stable, a cruel blow struck without warning. Carmen, her mentor, friend, and almost second mother, suffered a stroke. Lucia ran to the hospital the moment she found out, stayed by her side for hours. Carmen survived, but lost part of her mobility. She could no longer sew. That devastated Lucia. Losing her thread and needle partner was like losing a piece of her heart. But even in bed, Carmen held her hand and said, in a faint voice, "Now you carry on, mija. You've already learned everything you needed. Now you teach." And Lucia understood. She decided to open a small sewing course in the community, free of charge, teaching other women in difficult situations to find in sewing what she had found: dignity, strength, and a future. The first class had 6 students, then 12, then 20, women with children, with debts, with tears in their eyes, and a desire to change. And Lucia, right there among them, saw what she never imagined. She wasn't just a seamstress. She was a leader, a role model, living proof that a brave mother can stitch the impossible with her own hands. And it was in the midst of this new phase that something extraordinary was about to happen. Time went by, and Lucia's hands, once shaky with self-doubt, now moved with the precision of a seasoned artist. She no longer just sewed clothes. She sewed destinies, stories, reconnections with oneself. The small sewing course she created in the community grew beyond anything she could have imagined. Women from nearby neighborhoods began seeking out her classes. Some, without even enough money for the bus, walked with babies in their arms just to learn what Lucia had to teach. And she taught, with patience, with love, with pride. Because in each of those women, she saw a version of herself from years ago, tight-chested with hope on the brink of extinction. Now, she was the one reigniting those hopes with needle, thread, and faith. Costuras da Luz had become a respected name, still a small, homegrown brand, but with genuine engagement. Her social media began to grow, attracting followers from all over Mexico, and even beyond. Lucia's story was shared in every post. Her dresses now came with a card that read, "Handmade by a mother who chose not to give up." Sales increased. She hired 2 former students from the course to help in the atelier. Javier, once hesitant, was now her right-hand man, managing orders, organizing shipments, learning to handle customers. Emilia and Renata, now older, lived surrounded by fabrics, sketching designs, dreaming alongside their mother. Everything was moving forward, not with luxury, but with dignity. The family could pay their bills, eat better, even plan a small home renovation. But the most precious thing of all was peace. That feeling that they were finally winning a battle that once seemed impossible. But like every good story, fate had one last major twist in store. And this time, it would be the kind of turning point only the universe could stitch together. It happened on an ordinary morning. Lucia was organizing the atelier, preparing pieces for a small local craft fair. It was a modest event, but she made a point of participating. She loved connecting with people directly. She enjoyed hearing compliments, critiques, suggestions. She loved seeing her clothes being touched, tried on, felt. At this fair, something different happened. A man, dressed modestly but with an elegant posture, approached her booth. He studied the clothes carefully, touched the fabrics, read the cards. Lucía, as she did with everyone, smiled and offered help. "Can I help you with something, sir?" He looked at her, a slight smile on his lips. "Are you the creator of these pieces?" She nodded, proudly, every single stitch. He remained silent for a moment, then picked up a dress with delicate floral embroidery. "This one, it feels like it was made with soul." Lucía smiled, her eyes sparkling. "It was. I put soul into everything I make because I know what it's like to have nothing and still dream of everything." The man looked at her for a long moment. Then he took her card, thanked her, and walked away. Lucía had no idea who he was. 2 days later, she received a call. It was a very polite woman saying she worked with Don Salvador Ortega, a well-known investor and philanthropist who supported social impact projects in Mexico. He wanted to schedule a meeting with Lucía. She thought it was a mistake, but it was real. And the following week, there she was, walking into a modern building downtown with Javier, nervous, hands sweaty, not knowing what to expect. Don Salvador welcomed them with a warm smile. He explained that he had seen her work at the fair, researched her story, watched videos on social media, read customer comments, and old articles. He was impressed. "Then, Señora Lucía, your work is more than sewing. It's resilience. It's transformation. It's the best of what Mexico has to offer. I want to invest in you." She froze. He explained. He wanted to form a partnership. He would invest capital to professionalize the brand, expand the atelier, create an e-commerce site, and hire more seamstresses, all women from low-income backgrounds, trained by Lucía. In return, he would be a minority partner, with no say in creative decisions. "I want to see you shine, Lucía, but in your own way." Lucía cried. Javier cried. It was as if the universe had finally sewn the last stitch in a story made from scraps of courage, sweat, and love. In the months that followed, everything changed. With Don Salvador's support, Costuras da Luz transformed. The small studio became a fully equipped workshop, with space to train new students, modern machines, proper lighting, and large cutting tables. Lucía hired more women, ramped up production, started selling nationwide, and even internationally, shipping pieces to the United States, Spain, and Chile. She created a special line called Rices, inspired by Mexican culture, featuring traditional embroidery and native fabrics. It was a hit. More than that, it gave women who wore her clothes a sense of pride. They felt strong. They felt part of something bigger. Lucía started getting invited to speak at events. She shared her story with rooms full of young people, entrepreneurs, and women in search of inspiration. She always repeated the same line: "Sewing saved my life, but what really saved me was the love I put into every stitch." And she never forgot anyone. Carmen, even in a wheelchair, remained her advisor. Lucía built a small room just for her in the new headquarters of the brand. Her daughters grew up seeing their mother as a hero. Javier, now filled with pride, was in charge of all logistics, and the seamstresses who started with her were still there, loyal, grateful, proud to be part of that journey. Years later, sitting in the garden of their new home, a spacious, airy house with flowers planted by Renata and a porch where Emilia loved to draw, Lucía looked around and thought, all of this came from a needle, a thread, and a dream. And it was true. The brave mother who once collapsed from exhaustion on the kitchen floor was now a businesswoman, a role model, a symbol of overcoming adversity. But none of it went to her head, because deep down, she knew everything she had done was for love. Love for her daughters, for her husband, for dignity, for the desire to prove that, even in the worst circumstances, a woman can reinvent herself and change the fate of an entire family. And that's exactly what she did, with her own hands. If this story touched your heart like it touched ours, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Here, every story is a warm embrace in the form of words, and today's reminds us that brave mothers can turn pain into hope with their own hands. Share this video with someone who needs inspiration, and stick with us, because the next chapter might be even more moving.